And there we go. We're up and running.
Awesome.
Next episode of the SME Advantage. James, welcome.
Thank you very much for having me. Appreciate it.
So, everybody listening, we've got James Smith from Smith Brothers Media joining us today. James and I met a couple of years ago in Melbourne at the Small Business Conference and hit it off, and clearly have similar passions for helping SME owners around the country, and you guys are doing some amazing work in Melbourne there. Do you want to just give us a quick little intro and rundown
Yeah,
of your
sure.
operation?
Yeah. So obviously James, founder of Smith Brothers Media, been around for now. Geez, Kane, it's been a while. This month is going to be 14 years, believe it or not.
Wow.
So yeah, 14 years. Start off life in search marketing, and then we've been blessed to grow that into sort of three core areas. So marketing, creative, and tech. We've done a few acquisitions over the years, and we've now got a team of 50 people here in predominantly Melbourne, but across the rest of Australia and beyond. And then we work with small businesses and a few enterprise as well across those three different areas. But what I love about it the most is when we get to work with founders and seeing the real impact. I always say that when we work with founders, the smile is different. When you create change or something impactful, the smile is different, and that's one of the reasons we love what we do. And probably not too dissimilar to yourself, Gabe. I know you work with a huge number of founders, and when you create lasting, powerful, positive impact in their lives, it's something quite special.
Yeah, wow, that's a beautiful way of putting it. But it describes it so well. The smile is different. I think it's true. We enjoy so much working with the people who choose to be small, medium business owners who take on that road, solve those problems, contribute to our country in that way. There's just something about their grit and their willingness to have a go. And then if you can help them get a big win or a life-changing outcome, the reward is much sweeter, that's for sure.
For sure, for sure. So
Yeah,
yeah, in a nutshell, that's us. That's what we do. It's what we get up in the morning to do is try and create more of those smiles where possible.
man, that's awesome. And I I'd love to chat with you about what are the advantages that you see for SMEs today, and a little bit about how you help them harness that advantage.
Yeah, so I think there's so many different segues and topics and angles we could talk about, but I think the one that seems to be more pressing than ever, and it's something I've been talking about for many years, but it's becoming much more valuable and prevalent, which is how people use first person data within their business to grow or to maintain revenue. And I think the reason why it's so important now is small businesses are facing a challenge unlike they've faced before. I mean, obviously, we've gone through things fairly recently with COVID and obviously the challenge with what's happening in the Middle East with supply chain and logistics. But we're now sort of facing this sort of what appears to be a longer term economic sort of tightening. And the challenge with that is quite often small businesses rely a majority of their revenue comes from their existing customer base or their brand equity or referrals or word of mouth. And that's great. But they then rely on the 20% top up from their marketing efforts outside of that core base. But when we start to see things like this market tightening, that core base that used to deliver 80% of their revenue starts to shrink quite dramatically. And the danger there is it was happening organically. They weren't doing a lot to generate that
Mm,
80% revenue. And so then what they do is they start going to the old cutting tool and cutting costs. And the only thing they can cut costs from is the things that were generating the 20% of new revenue, and so then have a compounding impact of they're losing their 80% of revenue from their core business, their brand equity, their repeat, their referral. And then on top of that, they then start to lose their new business from their marketing endeavors. And so what we potentially see is this tightening and reduction of revenue overall across the business. So the reason I talk about first person data is if you own your contacts, you own your referral sources, you own your existing customers, and you have the ways to communicate to them, you can at least try and bolster that 80% of revenue that you've got through better communication, through face to face, through events, through picking up the phone. And there's a lot of businesses out there who don't actually have that. If you were to go to probably a number of founders you've worked with in the past, and you go, all right, have you got the phone number, email address, and details around every single person you've interacted with over the past 5 years? And in all honesty, if there are a lot of small businesses, the answer is no. And
mm,
so I think one of the things right now is how can you spend effort in making sure you shore up that database that you've got, and then you can start to make sure you're communicating in the right way. I'm not talking about spamming people, but how can you truly add value to that database to make sure that when they do need help and it's in your area of expertise, you're the one getting the phone call, and not some random Google search or whatever it might be.
Hello, Kane. Welcome.
Hey, did you guys move the time?
We did, yeah. James had to get to another meeting, so
That's all right. He's a big dog, mate. Doesn't surprise me.
that's right. He's a busy man.
Good to see you,
Welcome.
Kane.
We did the intros, and James has started chatting about the advantage that he sees and how a lot of SMEs don't do well in owning their contact base and shoring that up and extracting
Yeah,
more
definitely.
opportunity out of that by adding additional value. So I'm going to jump back into that, James. I guess my first question would be, how could owners shore up that database more? And then what are examples of being able to add value to that contact base so that you can extract more opportunity for your business out of that
Yeah,
80%?
great question. So the first thing is just simple CRM, and I don't mean you're going to have to, invest the next 5-6 months in building this perfect CRM, but just something that can at least house the information about those contacts, and ideally some sort of segmentation. Have they been a customer? Are they a prospect? Were they just a contact? Are they a supplier, a referral partner, whatever it might be? So a CRM is the first port of call, just very, very simple. There's some very simple tools out there to use, Pipedrive or Go High Level. And yes, you've got HubSpot, Zoho CRM, all those sort of things, which are not, are not going to break the bank from a cost per user perspective. But what that allows you to then do is start to then refine the data and start to add all your contacts to it. So then when I talk about contacts, it's like, well, what are the contacts? How do you go about getting them? Because a lot of people just don't have them. They don't think they have them to hand easily. And so we've now got a lot of AI tools that help us format things in the correct fashion. So first thing, most businesses will run off MyOb or Zero or something like that. Great. There's a first port of call to grab your contact database that you have been customers. Then you can export that. You can easily, with Claude Code or whatever it is, format to the right format for your CRM. Bang, there's one lot. There's tools out there as well that allow you to sort of go through your personal email boxes where you've had conversations. And again, this is not to be spamming people, but to at least understand who they are. So if you want to have a personal conversation with them, you can. So there's a tool out there called SigParser. You can inject it into your mailbox and it will crawl back up to 10 years and then extract the contact information of the people you've been interacting with where you've had a proper conversation. And then you can form that to put into your CRM. Then on top of that, there's a lot of people out there who've run events. They might have had registration platforms for those events. They might have had opt-ins for when they're running conferences or trade shows. Yet quite often they've done nothing with those databases and put them into something. Most businesses we work with have had some form of sort of email marketing campaigns over the years, but quite often it's changed between either marketing managers or external agencies before they realize they've got 2 or 3 different MailChimp accounts or Active Demand or whatever it is they're using to send emails, going back historically through all those and making sure that everything is pulled out and put into one place. So before you know, after a little bit of effort, a little bit of work, you've now got this sort of CRM with, something with 5, 6, 7, 10, 20 times the number of contacts you realized you had. And then it's about thinking about, okay, how can I communicate to those people in a meaningful way? And so now we've got the ability to sort of do data matching with a lot of advertising platforms. So LinkedIn, Meta, Google allow you to anonymously load up your contact databases to their platforms. So you can then just send ads just to those people. And so you're not having to go to a massively wide audience, and then you can start to put out more content just to those people, and you're going to stay front of mind at a very, very low cost. Obviously, we've got email campaigns and things like that, but I think the thing that I know, Gabe, we've spoken about in the past, and Kane, is human-to-human contact is important. So I came up with a way that's relevant for your business to actually have human-to-human conversations with these people, particularly where you're adding value. So one
That's
of the
right.
things I love seeing is where you're running a webinar, or you're running an in-person event, or you're attending someone else's event, but it's valuable for a segment of your audience. Why not run an outbound campaign, calling campaign to those people? Just say, hey, I'm going to be at this event. I think it's worth you coming along. Would love to see you there. And and those sort of things where you can actually have an excuse to have a conversation with people.
Yeah.
And we're finding with some of our clients, we're encouraging them to do that, and it's making a huge difference to their conversion rate. They're not even realizing they're calling them up just to have conversations, not even for an opportunity to sell. And as we all know, the more conversations and action you take, the bigger the chance that there's a reason to talk about something valuable in business. So for me, those are the things. So first off, make sure you understand who are your contacts, and then think intelligently about how to add value to those people. I'm not talking about going in for the card, hold, sell, and anything like that, but real good
Yeah.
conversations.
Unless you're Kane, then you'll go.
No. I do. I just love this idea though of leading with value, and I think that's something that's super underestimated these days for anybody who's building a career in any form of business. You know, if you can just start by creating value, you find that opportunities will follow that. And
Mm.
yeah, I think that's something that's lost even, with younger people building careers, for an example. Just focus on creating value first, and it really leads to positive output.
Yeah. And James, I want to ask you a question practically, and Kane's contribution there is going to be relevant to this question. But we work with so many business owners from, 5, 10 employees, 50, 100 up, right? In a lot of the cases, the owners in those businesses are so flat out, they can't have a minute to scratch themselves. And often, especially in this tightening economic climate, there's no spare cash. So for those businesses who don't have a dedicated marketing team or proper marketing resources, there's not now any real spare cash to throw at that to bring in an agency or bring in additional support. So they're going to have to do the contact management and the outreach and the lead with value themselves. How do I do that well as an owner to at least get some results out of that with those constraints?
Yeah, we're a good one. One painful one, which is a little bit of you're going to be a good manager and a good leader to make this happen. But obviously, a lot of these sort of organizations will have some form of sales team, whether they're handling inbound, whether they're handling existing or production, people who are doing the face-to-face, closing the deals, whatever that might look like. And so one really hot tip you can do, which is really low effort, is bring in the 10 before 10 rule. 10 phone calls before 10 o'clock. Every single person who's dealing with outbound, dealing with new business, 10 calls before 10 o'clock, going back through their oldest prospects, going back through past customers, going back through every single contact. And if every person every single day is attempting 10 calls before 10 and maybe having a strike rate of somewhere between 20 and 40%, that's 2 or 3 conversations you weren't going to have every single day. So there's these little things you can kind of bring in without having to exert more cost across your business, because ultimately those people are going to be underutilized in a tightening economy.
Definitely. And I think those behaviors will really come through now with realistically off the back of COVID and the dust settled. There was a lot of money floating around in different, in the system, and it made people's lives easier. And you think of even the role of a real estate agent, they effectively just process paperwork there for 2 to 3 years. So now you're going to see these guys that have built businesses from the ground up, I think, really start to thrive because they've got those, the behaviors that have underpinned the hustle to get there. It'll be interesting. And I think you come back to the superpower of, we touched on this last week, James, but speed to execution, and you can roll that out. You could roll it out tomorrow morning and everyone on the ground floor can adopt it. Because if there's only 5 people, very efficient communication. You don't have to go through layers of bureaucracy. You don't have to get it all ticked off. Let's just pick up the phone and execute.
Yeah.
Yeah. And like you said, James, that'll take real leadership.
Yeah, it takes leadership to make those things happen, especially when, like Kane, you've been saying, for different businesses, different industries, there's been, a fair few years of okay sort of opportunity, and a lot of people in those sort of sales roles, hate to say it, have in some ways become complacent, almost glorified order takers, not salespeople. And so I think that is one thing that needs to change. The business that are going to survive are the ones who are not afraid to have, those challenging initial conversations. It's one of the reasons why I love it when I work with people who've had previous experience doing outbound cold calling or door knocking or working in retail,
They're
selling an
resilient.
actual product. Resilience. Yeah, resilience. Because they find it enjoyable to try and find what's the angle I can find to have a good conversation, not to
Yeah.
sell something, but a good conversation. That's the real magic. So I think
On
10 before 10 is a really good way of doing it. And then if you've got certain topics in your industry that are interesting for people to know, but you can just share value, that's the easiest way to do it.
yeah, great, James. And Kane, on leading with value, have you got an example of how you guys have tackled that or had some results doing that?
Yeah, I think there's a beautiful book, that Unreasonable Hospitality, and they have this idea in it, one size fits one. Yeah, I think to any industry, and say for us, for example, we had a lady that was very she was anxious. She was widowed and she was moving house. Yeah, so just grabbed a couple of guys on the team. We went down to give her a hand. She's quite isolated. Took us half an hour just to lift a few things into the trailer, do whatnot. And this is a community regional town, right? But I guess the relief in that situation was palpable, and then it led to multiple referrals. And it wasn't why we did that. And I think, I always think of that story, and you come back to any situation. It could be somebody needs the CRM, and you might not be the one that, you're not selling CRMs yourself, but you could go, hey, I'll give you a demo. I'll show you how that CRM looks in our business, how we apply it, the impact it's had for us. And then you can have that starts a conversation where it breaks down a bit of the unknown, sees them transition through to getting the CRM. And next thing they know, oh, actually, James, I need some help with that marketing now because I've got a CRM. And these are the little things. I think if you just focus on what's that obstacle that human's dealing with, be curious, keep asking questions, identify a solution for them with your own experience. And ultimately, any SME business owner is typically a bit of an SME, ninja warrior when it comes to getting through the obstacles that, ultimately block your path to delivery. I think I got a question too. With this evolution in AI agents and delivery through in a technical term like MCPs, like what do you see as this opportunity in the future for SME businesses to sell agent to agent? Have you thought much about that?
Yeah, a lot. And I think it's before we even get agent to agent, it's almost the way that we interact. So I think there's this idea of selling agent to agent as though it's, humans are completely removed from the equation. But actually what it is humans are still in the equation because they're setting the pathway of what they need to have done. So for example, I need to book a flight. Okay, so I'm going to tell my agent to go book a flight. Now, at the moment, people will think, okay, that agent might go and research some opportunities. They'll crawl the web and try and find, all the different available flights that might fit my needs. And then my agent will come back with the options. And then I might say, yes, I'll take that one. But what that actually means agent to agent is it knows my details. It has everything it needs. It goes off to find it. Rather than going to the website, it's actually interacting with the airline's agent or the broker's agent, not going through the website. It's connecting to either their API or their MCP, or it's interacting with their agent. And this is what people are talking about now is APIs were really built for humans to connect systems. And same with MCP, same thing. And then CLI. And now there's a potential way that they're now thinking about how are we going to start allowing our sort of external connections to work for agent to agent. And so, it's gonna be something. And I think for those who haven't already started playing with it, like you just said, Kane, people connecting their agents to MCPs of their allowed services isn't too far from that equation. So it's going to happen. And we're starting to see some aspects of it. I think one of the biggest challenges, though, is in a business sense, how do we put rigor and governance around what our people who have access to our agents are able to do and should be able to do when we're requesting, but almost more importantly, writing new information as well, or for example, buying something or making an update to a strategic plan through an agent, or documenting something in an accounting software via an agent or something. Who's got the permissions to be able to allow to do that? And that's something which is really being worked on by a lot of people. We're trying to do that. We're struggling because there isn't really anything off the shelf that's available. So we've built a tool. to allow permission sets within our business across all our different agent tools. But I think it's something that's got to come pretty quickly, because it's probably one of the gateways or one of the blockers at the moment for businesses really getting into that side of it.
Yeah, for sure.
James, your team and yourself are quite tech savvy because it's critical to your business, right? You guys are subject matter experts on the topic. Kano, I know you've gone full deep dive on AI, so have I, but the average business owner have not. And their exposure to AI is a ChatGPT search engine or the spray and pray vibe coding. Can we build this? Oh, look, what's happened, and not really understanding what is going on. If I was the average SME owner, and I absolutely have to start leaning into and take advantage of this technological opportunity or get left behind, what is the first most important thing to do and get right for my business?
For me, there's two parts. There's obviously the production side of things, the actual doing it, and then there's the understanding of why you're doing it. They're almost two very separate things, and quite often we get caught up in this fear of missing out, that we're not using AI, that we just dive in, start using it, or like, okay, let's just go rebuild our website using Lovable or whatever it is. But what's the real reason you're doing it? And so I think starting with an end in mind is important. And I think one of the dangers we've got at the moment is using AI, and actually proper AI tools can end up being quite expensive, incredibly valuable, but unless you are understanding what the value is bringing, incredibly expensive. And so for a lot of small businesses, they're not actually able to rationalize the cost saving for quite some time. I'm yet to find a lot of businesses who are doing really well at actually truly rationalizing, consolidating their costs as a result of using AI tools or capability. And so starting with, okay, what is it I'm trying to achieve? Am I trying to achieve greater revenue through maybe delivering more value and winning more deals? Or am I trying to do cost saving, or both? Now, the problem is, if you don't get any revenue growth and you don't get any cost saving, what happens? You're just adding another expense into the mix, some more complexity, taking some time. And before you know it, you've actually increased your operational costs, and maybe your cost of goods sold, and you haven't actually reduced any of your overheads. And then your profitability starts to drop through the floor, as on top of that, your clients are expecting to see lower costs because you're using AI. And so for me, small businesses, they need to understand where's the potential future cost saving or revenue growth from what they're trying to do. Then once you got that, and then I've got some other kind of theories on how you should go about building. But that's probably more important.
James, with with what I think you're spot on there. And from what I'm seeing is that the traditional sort of, I guess, framework of what a process was or what a business delivered will now go through this evolution with AI enablement. And so even for us in our business, I can't really see a future where we'll need less humans yet. I see this future where the delivery and the service we provide to our clients enhances significantly, but then we simply need more humans that are AI enabled to continue to deliver. So I think, this is a weird change. Like if the process was a really, let's say we prepared this, in our world, a statement of advice or as a letter of intent or whatever it was, and whatever, we can do that so much more efficiently now. But the expectations around delivery or the branding or the connection to the humans, engagement is completely evolving. I think that's the transition you'll see, where people reflexively go, AI, everything. What's the problem they're trying to solve? And I don't know if there's enough thought going into, what is this constraint we're actually dealing with right now?
Yeah, very much. I think that's as exciting as it is. That's a danger, isn't it? Because, like you just said, you see the need for those same number of humans in that same business setting, but you're also going to have this additional AI cost for enablement and the expectation of clients to deliver even more for the same cost. Are we going to see revenue growth or not? And that's the challenge, because I think we're already starting to see, even in our business and our clients' businesses, expectations and downward pressure from the consumer about price reduction as a result of using AI tools. But the same person needs to still be talking and communicating and working with the client. So it doesn't mean that fixed cost of that person suddenly disappears.
Yeah, that's right.
And if you're a small business and you've only got, 3 people doing one role, but you're only saving 10% of their time each, you can't cut one of them and keep 2 of them. You still need all 3.
Yeah.
I mean, this is a real practical dilemma for owners right now. Is they've got existing workforces that having these cost pressures from their customers, and the efficiency gain doesn't match up with the pressure, and they end up in the situation when the margin gets squeezed. And then if they haven't been supremely disciplined with their operating cash and the pipelines collapsing, we're seeing businesses closing like this right now.
Yeah, I think for me, that's selfishly why I think the solution is sales and new business. Because if you're growing your revenue and you're being aggressive about it, you can afford to keep the headcount and not have to increase the headcount, but you can use AI efficiency. So that's one way around it. And so that's what we've been doing. We've just done another acquisition of another agency, and we'll look at a couple more. And so we just acquire the revenue and keep relatively the same sort of operational cost. And then use AI tooling as well to then help improve efficiencies across the board rather than having to shrink it.
And I mean, we often talk about businesses who can't adopt this technology well and fast enough are in trouble. But I think there's another more impactful underlying truth, and it's an oldie, like a goodie, is the guys that's going to sell well will survive. You have to be able to sell yourself.
Hardwired for this environment, mate.
Absolutely.
That's where we and that's these themes we're talking about. Once you solve your technology stack, James, then to me it's all about how do you use brand to drive opportunities to this human connection. And every business still has this component of human connection, and that's the critical element. And if brand and technology can come in service of that opportunity, then I think that's where your sales really unlocks. And
it's a really good segue you just brought up there, Kane, because a study came out last week about the surge in in-person events and
the experience economy.
Events. Yeah, experience economy. And so that's something which I think probably needs some more consideration and how that impacts how business operate. And so even LinkedIn are thinking about running much more event-based type things within their platform, and that could well be something that we see become more prevalent. And I know for us in the past that's worked incredibly well, using events as that sort of stepping stone, how to add value. And we talked at the very beginning about having your database and how do you communicate with them, how do you actually have meaningful conversations around your area of expertise without pitching, without selling. And that I think is a really cool way of doing it. So that in-person event-based stuff where you can work out ways of doing it at a low cost per head, but incredibly valuable. That can work incredibly well. In fact, that's something we do. I'll give you a quick example of that. So we've got our database, we segment. We've got a number of manufacturers on one part of our database. We're running a workshop this Thursday for 20 business owners in manufacturing, or CMOs, business owners, brand managers. That's either very low cost or discounted to free or subsidized to free, depending on who they are and what they represent to us. And within 4 days, literally someone just doing an outbound calling campaign to our database, it's filled, done. But not only is it filled, but we've also had about 5 times more conversations than the people are actually attending, because a lot of people can't make it, obviously, because it's short notice, but then that allows us to have over 100 good conversations.
Yeah.
So we've got 20 people turning out to an event, and as a result of that, there was another 4 or 5 people that actually now want to have a chat to us offline about something completely different. And so that's where sales and value all comes together. In-person events.
Well, we've talked about it, Gabe, you and I see our own business here. I joke, even though we're in financial advice, that we're effectively going to be a professional event management company one day. Because, as technology sort of collapse a lot of this, bureaucracy and compliance into very streamlined, processes. Then we need that brand to be supported by the events.
Yeah, the human connection. James, if people who are listening want to connect and tap into your expertise and knowledge in this domain space, what's the best way to get in touch with you?
Yeah, you feel free to find me on LinkedIn. Just search James Smith. Put marketing afterwards because there's a couple of James Smiths out there, or SBM. Or you can just find me, send through an inquiry on the website, or give us a call. And more than happy to connect there. But that's probably going to be the easiest way. But yeah,
Awesome.
more
I'll
than
add
happy.
those
And I
links
do
to the
try.
notes.
I try and put a couple of interesting bits of information out on LinkedIn. So hopefully
You're on
this is
fire,
interesting. There's a
Smithy.
few
You're
more.
dominating it. I like it.
Yeah, lots of great business ideas coming at you on LinkedIn. That's awesome.
Yeah.
James,
Yeah.
thank you very much for making time, mate. I'm very grateful. Kane, thanks for jumping in. And we will be
We'll
here
get you
again
back in a
next
month or
week.
so, James, and we'll be able to reflect on what you've seen in the last month, because this is, the rate of change is here, and the real
Yeah,
opportunity, I
it
think,
is.
to stay nimble and open-minded and curious.
So true. Wonderful.
Absolutely.
Thank you, gentlemen.
Thanks,
Thanks, guys.
everybody.
Take care.